Welcome to the flowerschool.com video library. I'm Leanne Kessler, Director of the Floral Design Institute, here to share with you our latest segment on the Cymbidium Bridal Bouquet. Done in the hand-wired style, it's very classy, very elegant, sure to be a favorite of the brides of today. But it has some skills you need to master, and that is what I want to share with you today. You can buy Cymbidium orchids individually tubed and then boxed by the dozen, or on the master spike. I like to buy the spike just because it's so fabulous. You can cut them apart yourself. So easy, just clip the lateral from the stem and you're ready to wire. Now, you can wire a number of different ways, but my favorite is to take a 22 gauge wire, pierce through the stem, going about halfway, bend it down, and then clutch wrap as well. So you do both. Stem length, about 1 inch to 2 inches, and when you cut it at a strong slant. That way when you tape it, it's very easy to taper over as you go down. Roses are done much the same way. Cut the stem down to about 1 inch, then using a 22 gauge wire, pierce through the hip, right at the base, feeding it through about half, but this time I don't clutch wrap it, I just bend it straight down. So again, it's just take your rose, short stem, feed the wire through the base of the calyx, and bend that wire straight down. For statice, there's nothing really to pierce through. The stem is so tiny. So instead, you take a few bits, cluster them together, and then using your 22 gauge wire, clutch wrap, much like you would if you were tying it with a string. Once, twice, thrice, and bend it straight down. So again, it's just a few bits of statice, clustered together, taking the wire once, twice, thrice, and bending it down. With galax leaves, remove the most of their stem. You only want it about 1 to 2 inches long, just like everything else. Then, using your wire, make a hairpin, bending it in half so you've got a nice hook. And that's going to feed over the main vein right in the center of the leaf, and then down, pulling it till it just disappears, and then taking and clutching that around the stem to hold it in place. So once again, to make that hook, create a nice V, then feed that over the main vein of the leaf, then feeding it down through, pulling it, and then holding and clutching right around the stem so it's ready to use. Once everything is wired, you can go back and tape it, starting right at the top and then pulling tautly, getting it nice and tight, thin as possible, tidy, and do that for each item. So the galax leaves, just starting at the top, taping down, moving on to the statice, going right over where I clutched, and then over the stem, down the wire. The roses, reaching up as far as you can underneath the sepals. Don't break them off because the rose will fall apart. But you want to tuck up underneath as high as you can, and then on down the bottom. And the Cymbidium orchids, same thing, starting up high where I wrapped and clutch wrapped with the wire, over the top, concealing all those mechanics, then down over the stem. And that tapering cut makes it a little bit easier, and then all the way down to the bottom. So I've laid out all the taped materials. They're upright where I can easily grab them. And then I have some ruscus that I've not wired and taped. And it's totally permissible when you're assembling to just take that and attach it right to the side of the stem. So your sturdier foliages and even some fillers, oftentimes I don't wire them. I just take them and add them to an existing item that's already been wired so that I can tuck it in and have that green, but without extra wires coming down. Now when I go to assemble, I might start with 3 of the orchids. So I'm going to take one more orchid and add a little bit of ruscus to that, taping it on. And then taking those 3 and clustering them together in my hand, letting them overlap just a little bit and their faces face each other, almost like they're talking. Orchids are social creatures, you've heard me say that before. And putting their throats looking towards each other, it's like they're talking, having a conversation. Then you can go back, tuck in a little bit of the statice to add some contrast. And then a little bit of the rose as well to bring in that red. Picks up the red of the throat. Now as I tuck these all in my hands, I think about a nice round form. And periodically I can just squish those stems together. Don't twist them. Keep them straight. Twisting will add bulk and ribs. You don't want that. And you can even go back and tape periodically to hold them in place. You don't need to go all the way to the bottom, but tack at the top. As I add the additional orchids, I just tip them back so that they start pulling around to the base, giving it a little softer roundness, tipping it, keeping all the stems parallel. I can even take the petals and reflex them so that they pop backward a little bit. As you can see, the throats are all still facing towards the center of the bouquet. Then going back, adding a few more roses. Maybe clustering several on that side. And one more over on this side. Then coming back with the statice, adding that depth of color. And looking at it for balance. Am I symmetrically round? Got a hole right there, filling that in a little more. Then going back with the galax, and this time I use them backwards. When you think of galax, you think about putting them in like this, but I want them to be beautiful on the back side of the bouquet. So I'm facing them outward to cover all the mechanics of my stems. And then when they're done and all the way around, I can go back and tack it all together with the tape, making one wonderful handle. For the handle, you want roughly 2 hands, maybe 1.5. And so I flare out the wires so I don't have to try to cut them all at once because that doesn't work well. Then cut across to about that 2-hand length. Then squish them right back together. Again, not twisting because you don't want that added bulk. And go back and tape one last time, making sure that everything's covered over, no mechanics can show. And then when you go down to the bottom, tape over the bottom, making sure that the tape covers all those wires so that there's no chance that the bride could get poked or pricked with the end of a wire. To cover over the tape, I'm going to ribbon wrap the handle. And I just pull off a segment. Always give myself a little extra. You don't want to run out. Give it a cut. And then, holding the bouquet upside down, take your ribbon and tuck it over the end, and then tucking both sides, start wrapping at an angle. So I turned it and started angling it so that it spins around the side. And as I start, you keep tucking that ribbon so you get a nice smooth tip. And then once you get it going, then it's easy. It's just that tip that can be a little challenging at first. Periodically, you may need to twist your ribbon to get it to lay flat. Just give it a twist and then keep wrapping. You can twist it again and then keep wrapping. Pulling it to the side so it doesn't damage the petals. And then as you get to the top, you'll have to twist it again to get it to lay flat. And then twist it again to get it to lay flat. And then go up as high as you possibly can. And then a little higher than you think you can, because you want to cover all your mechanics. And when you get up to the very tip top, bring it back around on itself and tuck the ribbon through, pulling it. So you tie it into a knot, making sure that it's all going to stay in place. And then I repeat that. Don't need quite so much, cutting it down. Wrap around the neck one more time, pulling it up, pulling it taut. And then you can use your extra bit. Make a little bow. Wire that. Then clip the wire off. You don't need the wire other than to hold it together. And then tuck that in. And using the ends, I'm just going to take those ends and wrap it right around the top, tying it. Bring it back around and knotting it to add a little more flourish at the top. Creating a hand-wired bouquet is a professional skill that takes practice. I encourage you to gather up flowers and create your own. And do it ahead of time before you ever sell one to a bride, so that you feel like you're comfortable and have totally mastered the technique. Then, of course, since there's no water reservoir, this is the type of bouquet that you'd make up just a day in advance, then spritz it with water, seal it in a plastic bag, and store it in your flower cooler so that it will hold nicely. You don't want to do it weeks in advance or even days in advance. You want to plan a little more to the last minute. But day of, that can be kind of scary. Now, if you want more information, more inspiration, more education, check out our website at flowerschool.com. If you've got questions, don't hesitate to contact us. You can reach us at the website or via the telephone at 1-800-819-8089. If it's easier, use my personal email. It's Leanne, Leanne, at floraldesigninstitute.com. I'm here to help you as you have fun, learn new techniques, and do something you love.